The Obama administration might be stifling whistleblowers in the federal government, but over in the private sector, whistleblowers are serving an important role in exposing fraud. Joining me now to talk about the latest example of corporate wrongdoing that whistleblowers uncovered is attorney Chris Polis. Chris, Amgen Incorporated in the news again, scamming the American public, scamming taxpayers and scamming patients. Tell us this story.
Well, Pap, you're absolutely right. Amgen just got hit for about $29 million fine. It's actually a settlement that they've entered into with the Department of Justice. Some of the fine work done out of the state of South Carolina by Assistant Attorney General Bill Nettles has brought these folks to the table to pay a pretty hefty fine for, again, ripping off the Medicaid, Medicare programs and other benefit programs that our government provides to take care of some elderly folks in nursing homes and long-term care facilities.
Well, we're always critical when the U.S. Attorney's Office doesn't do their job, but Nettles got it done here, it appears, this particular prosecutor. As a matter of fact, this is an anemia drug, correct?
That's correct. It's a crucial drug that folks that have diabetes or chronic kidney disease require to go along with some of their dialysis treatments and to keep them alive. So it's an absolutely crucial drug for these folks to have access to.
And so this prosecutor understood that not only was the industry churning the process, scamming the process, they were putting patients' lives at risk. And because of that, I think the criminal penalties and fines were approaching $800 million in this situation. Does that really stop a company from doing the types of things we're talking about here?
You know, sadly, Pap, I don't think it does. I think we see time and time again that these companies are slapped with what we would think to be hefty fines. Amgen is a perfect example of it. They've been hit with fine after fine after fine over the last decade that they've been doing business, and they clearly haven't. It clearly has not had the punitive effect that it should have and that it's designed to have. These companies have just incorporated these types of fines and penalties as a cost of doing business in the pharmaceutical industry in the United States.
And so in this situation, Chris, what they were doing is they were actually using doctors in the process. The doctor was actually part of the scam, weren't these doctors part of the scam too?
Yeah, it's a pretty complex process. First of all, it appears that Amgen was trying to compete or at least get a leg up on their competition in Johnson & Johnson. They had a drug called Procrit, and so Amgen was trying to secure a larger portion of the market with their particular drug, Aranesp. So what they were doing is paying kickbacks to doctors, and in the complaints for the filings in this case, it was called a liquid kickback. And what they were doing was they're overfilling the vials of this medicine. So they're giving doctors more medicine than what they should have been getting in each vial, and then the doctors could then turn around and charge Medicaid and Medicare more for the amount of medicine that they were using. They could get more mileage out of each vial, so to speak.
Well, Chris, the doctors clearly had to know what was going on. I mean, the doctors, if they were actually making money by scamming taxpayers just like Amgen, where do you think that'll go, if anywhere? Once a case is over like this, it's basically over, isn't it?
You know, it pretty much is. Once the settlement is entered into with the government, it pretty much exonerates the company, and again, the company doesn't have to admit liability for committing any of these acts, but the dollars that they're willing to pay it's pretty apparent what's going on.
But the doctors in this situation who had to knowingly participate in this scam, there were no prosecutions as far as I can see.
No, not that I can tell either, and that's not uncommon. Doctors are somewhat of the middlemen in these particular scenarios. The DOJ is focused on going after the large corporations, the folks who are capable of paying these fines, and you know, the doctors in this particular instance aren't being prosecuted.
Well, in this situation, it wasn't just that they were scamming taxpayers. It wasn't just the doctors and, really, if you think about the company, together were scamming taxpayers, but they were also putting patients at risk with off-label uses of this product, overuse of the product, uses in ways that it was never even intended to be used. Talk about that just a little bit.
Well, you know, off-label use of the product is a use of the drug that it's using a drug for things that it's not indicated by the FDA, meaning it's not approved for those particular uses. Now, it's not illegal for a doctor and their patient to use a drug off-label if they believe it to be an effective treatment for whatever ailment that they may have. But what is illegal is for a pharmaceutical company to encourage doctors to market their drugs in an off-label purpose to healthcare providers. And that's what was going on here. Amgen was marketing, telling doctors to use their drug for these off-label purposes. And what that did is contaminate that doctor-patient relationship. Doctors were getting paid, they were getting incentivized to use these drugs off-label at the risk of their patients.
Chris, in about 20 seconds, how did the U.S. Justice Department find out about this case?
They found out through whistleblowers. In fact, this particular case was so large and it had such a large geographic scope, there were about 11 different people who stepped forward to tell the Department of Justice what was going on.
Thank goodness they did, otherwise we'd never know about it. Thanks for joining me, Chris.
Absolutely. Thanks, Pat.